Hello, I am the athletic senior writer for college football, David Ubben, here with fellow athletic senior writer for college football, Ari Wasserman. And Ari talked to, I guess we'll say, Papa Gronk this week. It has spawned a ton of conversation. We've seen J.J. Watt weigh in. We've seen anybody, Patrick Mahomes was weighed in a little bit. We've seen anybody with any sort of platform online talking about Baby Gronk. This sort of grew from an ironic meme into a talking point about how we raise children, what the role of football is, social media, all kinds of stuff. And so, is this whole situation just the beginning stages of a new Riz King, or is the whole situation just sus, as the youths would say? Ari, there's been so much conversation about your conversation with Baby Gronk's dad. What have you made of this thing sort of taking on a life of its own in the last week?
Yeah, the New York Times tweet had 40 million impressions on it, which, how many people are in America? Like 400 million?
300 million. I generally think impressions is a lame online statistic, but a lot of people saw it.
So 1 out of 10 people in America saw it, I guess. I don't know.
And that was one of many tweets about Baby Gronk.
Yes. Anyway. But, I think that the thing that really stood out to me, Dave, and it was kind of apparent from the second it went on the internet and through the last 3 days, is that a large portion of the reaction to the story was, criticizing me for even doing it, and a lot of people thought, why would you give this guy a platform? Why would you try to call him? He's tried to reach out to other people. They have not fielded his calls. It's the exploitation of a 10-year-old. All the things that you could possibly imagine have been a part of it. So it feels good to be back into this podcastless, break here and looking at your perfect face and getting into, this a little bit more and talking into a microphone. So, I do think it's a interesting dynamic because we both went to journalism school, and, there are, topics like this in terms of ethics and whether or not you're supposed to do something. And, we got a lot of journalism lessons from people with egg profile pictures this week. And, I thought about this. My editor thought about it. His editor thought about it. The sensitive content channel thought about it. Like, there's been a lot of people with a lot of journalism backgrounds that, were aware of the situation, and we went forward anyway. And we want to talk about that and why we think it's important. And, the good thing I want to say here is that I don't have to be right, Dave. Like, you learn a lot from situations like this. And I still feel 3 days after it ran that I did the right thing. But certainly might, think about things differently in the future if I come across something like this. So let's get into it and see how much context that we can provide people who are curious about why we even ran it to begin with.
Yeah, I think the starting place, Ari, is where does this idea come from?
Yeah, well, the starting place was having eyes on the internet. It's like our fundamental job is to see something that, people are reacting to and to provide context to it. Now, I obviously cover recruiting for The Athletic. And I see a 10-year-old all over the internet in different uniforms getting preferential treatment at college football programs. So for me, if I thought the Livy Dune thing was interesting because of the Riz King stuff and everything that everyone's joking about. But to me, the more important thing was with my expertise in recruiting that they're not actually recruiting this kid, and people think that they are. You can't recruit a 10-year-old. There's no... there's still a fundamental disconnection between like people thinking how good he is. He's 10. He's not good or bad. He's just bigger. And I thought that if people were going to be in a situation where they think that colleges are actually recruiting him, he's committing to Oregon, all these things that you've seen on the internet, that I would call the dad to figure out what the angle was. So that to me is how I did it, because it's my instinct as a journalist at The Athletic to give people answers to questions that they have.
And I'll say, so, I grew up on the internet, but as I've gotten older, I have a 1-year-old now. I spend a lot less time on social media. It's just a lifestyle choice in general. I was not aware of Baby Gronk. I think in the aftermath of all this, you heard a lot of people saying like, oh, this kid's in DMs all the time. I'd never heard of this kid until like a week ago.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, he still has 320,000 something Instagram followers. That's not small. And you're got into this. His dad says he's making what $100,000 a year off of that, which, whatever. You can suss that out if you'd like, but whatever. That's what we're.
It's just what he said, and that's the whole point of this. Because I heard a lot like, how could you give this man a platform?
He's got
the last few days. His platform is 8 times bigger than mine. Like, he has a platform. he doesn't need me for anything. His platform is literally 7 times or 8 times larger than mine. And I take exception to the idea that I did anything to promote the man. I wrote it in a Q&A style, which was done purposefully as to allow him to speak about what is happening with his son, which, hundreds of thousands of people, if not more, were interested in. So, I think there's a question, Dave, about how it was presented and whether or not I should have written a column. But to me, if you look online right now and see what's the general consensus of the discussion about this man that's on the internet right now, if you think about like what Pat McAfee was talking about, who else was talking about it?
Literally everyone,
everybody. But I don't think I've seen a lot of discussion about how he's father of the year from anybody.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like to give the man a platform.
We had Todd Marinovich trending on Friday.
Yeah, so like, isn't that the point of what this is to allow him to speak? He's spoken, allow the readers who are smart enough to go through this to come to their own conclusions. And what's the conclusion that everybody came from? Do you think this man is better off now as a result of this?
I think that's up for debate. I suppose there's a school of thought that would say no publicity is bad publicity. But at the end of the day, I think ultimately, and I think we're aligned on this, Ari, is what we do a lot of the time at The Athletic is if there's something that a lot of people are talking about, whether that be something viral, something that happened in a game, whatever. Nicole's done some of this. You've done some of this. I've done some of this. It's just saying, hey, what's the deal here? What's the actual, who are these actual people? And that, I think, was sort of the jumping off point, if I had you correct.
Yeah. And like doing it in Q&A form tried to remove all editorialization possible. Is this man a good person? Is he raising his kid right? All the questions that are left for the reader to decide after consuming the piece, allows people and gives them the power to come up with their own idea of it. Now, the thing that I think is interesting here, Dave, is that if you're mad at me for giving him a platform, what about all the schools that are giving him preferential treatment?
This is and
is that going to stop now as a result of the story?
I think we'll have to see. It's one thing if he takes a picture with a coach. He's got pictures of Josh Heupel and Nick Saban.
He can go to any camp he wants.
That's different. Yeah. But when they're giving him uniforms and doing all these fancy photo shoots, I would argue that is legitimizing this whole operation far
and empowering more. And enabling a person that you don't think should be enabled.
Yeah. And so it's like, and I think too, like, there's an idea of like, oh, we're making judgments on this guy. Why would you talk to this guy? Ari, I didn't know anything about the kid's dad before you talked to him. I'm assuming
I didn't know anything about the guy either. Everybody's like, this guy's been in my DMs like 1,000 times for the past 3 years. Never texted me. I called him. I had no idea he was like this. Yeah. And you know what? The fact that I know about it now is the reason the story should have been ran. Yeah, because now people know this. All the screenshots of his DMs to everybody are on the internet. They wouldn't have been if I didn't write the story. Isn't that good?
Yeah, I think there's value to that. I think ultimately, whatever the actual situation here is, I think there is value in shedding light on that. And I think overall, it's interesting. This is something that we don't see that often. We've seen it a few times throughout history with varying results of success. Like Todd Marinovich is obviously the sort of apples to apples comparison, but we just had Will Smith win an Oscar for playing, the Williams sisters' father.
Tiger Woods' dad's
Tiger Woods, yeah. Earl Woods that's complicated for a million different reasons, but on course results are sort of speak for themselves. So the fact of whether again, I think that with the people that are sort of angry about, well, this shouldn't exist. It's like, well, I don't think that we should just ignore this person because a lot of people might disagree with his parenting
You
style.
put it best in text here, Dave. You said, I find it weird when people get mad at somebody asking actual questions that answer what's the deal with the thing that everybody is talking about but nobody understands.
Yes.
That is perfect. And it's another thing too, for a piece of context. I didn't just call the guy out of the blue. I was reacting to a viral moment. Mm-hmm. The Livy Dunn thing was happening.
And it was a little weird.
Everybody was talking about it. The Riz thing was happening. And then on top of it, we're talking about a quasi-recruiting situation because he's going to recruiting events and being treated like a recruit, even though he's 10.
And this thing's played off as a parody. And it's like, where's the line between joke and
everybody was
life?
Joking about it. So I wanted people to see what was going on, and we strive to give context to the things that people are talking about. Now, here's the thing that I think is the most interesting about it, Dave. People are talking about Todd Marinovich. This kid is 10. And there were some things in there about, being groomed and, eating certain diets and working out 5 times. Yeah. And I get that. Maybe that's the case. But the dad doesn't think, I don't think, that this kid is already a Division I athlete. He's just bigger than everybody else right now. He hasn't played organized football at the high school level or anything. And when kids get to be his size, it's going to change quite a bit. So this isn't a discussion about whether or not he's overbearing when it comes to making him a athlete first and a kid second. This is him actually literally making a social media platform to profit off of. It has nothing to do with even how good his kid is. That's the reason why people follow him.
Yeah.
Football's the vehicle, but it's not like he has any illustration of being an Alabama tight end in 5 years. Mm-hmm. So much is going to be able to change in the next 4 years. When he gets to high school and kids get to be his size, he starts playing against a more diverse audience, a more diverse set of people. It's going to be a little bit different for him. So it's not about whether or not he's going to be programmed to be a great athlete. The fact that the odds are against him that he'll ever play Power 5 football. Mm-hmm. He's 10.
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting conversation, and I think overall, Ari, there's value, like we said, in sort of saying what's the actual deal here, and I think that there is danger in just not asking questions, and I think the way that you presented it was responsible, and I get that people don't love it. But we'll see. I think there's value in providing context to a widespread internet meme that does have a kernel of truth at the center of it.
Yeah, and I feel good that there's a nationwide discourse about the man right now. And all this to say is, my job is to give people the information on the topics that they're interested in. And it's funny to me. It's just like as the story was blowing up, I was like watching a documentary about Jeffrey Dahmer. It's like, because I like true crime. People who've listened to the Andy Staples show know that like I enjoy watching the documentaries like so many people do. And, it's not the country is interested in and consuming every type of person. It's just like, we don't just write about people who are good people. You know what I mean? It's about what's interesting and what people deserve to know about. And, the fact is people may not like what I did. And if they don't, it's okay. I'm not going to bat 1,000% in everybody's eyes or bat 1,000. Journalism is tricky, and I'm good to have conversation about this and learn, moving forward, because everything is a case study. I went with my instincts. I trusted my editors. And the funniest thing about this whole thing, Dave, is that I will probably be writing about another 5-star prospect tomorrow who may or may not have parents with well-adjusted priorities. Like that's you know what I mean? Like that's the biggest joke of it all. It's like everybody's doing it on social media, but you think that every overbearing parent or every parent that's involved in their 5-star son's recruitment is got everything all squared away in the proper order? So like, just I don't know. This is to say, I think it was worth it, and I think the result of it, even if I had to take kind of a beating from the public, I'm happy with where it went, how it went, and obviously the response to the story.
Yeah, well, that's been us chatting about Baby Gronk. I don't imagine there'll be a ton of Baby Gronk content on The Athletic moving forward. I think the story has been told as much as we need to at the moment. And but what that looks like moving forward for him on the recruiting trail, if we can call it that, Ari, I think is an interesting question. But
if it even happens, yeah.
Yes. But thank you guys for watching. Again, for Ari Wasserman, I'm David Ubben. We'll see you guys again very, very soon.